In this video, you'll learn about the multiple row selection feature and how to implement it. The display array sub-dialog allows multiple row selection. Users can select multiple rows using standard selection keys such as Control-click and Shift-click. The example here shows two dynamic arrays, and the display array statements are sub-dialogs of a dialog statement so that they are both active at the same time. The user can select one, many, or all the rows from each of the tables and move them back and forth. When you use multiple row selection, you must distinguish between two concepts, row selection and the current row. In GUI mode, a selected row usually has a blue background, while the current row has a dotted focus rectangle. The current row may not be selected, or a selected row may not be the current row. In this example, you see on the left 5 rows that are selected, but there's only one current row, which is that bottom row. On the right, you see no selected rows, but there is a current row, that first row in the table. There are 3 dialog methods to assist you in implementing MRS. The first one is set selection mode, which indicates if the named screen array in the display array is to use multiple selection. In the example here, we simply see the array name and the setting to true to indicate that both of these arrays should use multiple selection. The next method is row selected. Dialog.isRowSelected queries to see if a row selection flag has been set. This code shows the isRowSelected method used within a for loop to check each row in the array. As each row is checked, if it's a selected row, the row is appended to the other array and deleted from the source array. You could use 2 loops, one to append to the array and one to delete from the source array, or you can use 1 loop as shown here. But note here that you have to reduce the counter variable. The third method is set selection range, which programmatically changes selection flags for a range of rows. In these examples, all rows are either selected or unselected. To select all rows, beginning to end, you can use 1 as the beginning index and -1 as the ending index. But you could also supply values such as 5 for the beginning and 10 for the end, or pass an integer variable to this method for the start and end values. Let's take a look at some example code to see these methods working together. The code that we've looked at in the slides, now let's take a look as a running program. Again, we have the 2 tables, the arrays, 2 display arrays, one on the left, one on the right. And as we select fields, we can move them back and forth. Let's first take a look at the form file, the .per form file, and we'll see that we have 2 table containers defined. We've also set the table container to also include a double-click attribute, meaning the action that's going to be triggered if the user double-clicks on one of the rows. And for us, it's going to be moving them one direction or the other. And then our buttons down the middle are also set to the actions. Now, if we look here at the 4GL code, we see we've opened the form, we've displayed the form, and then we have a dialog statement that has 2 display array sub-dialogs. So there's our dialog statement, and then within it again 2 sub-dialogs, 2 display arrays, and we're displaying each of the arrays to each of those table containers. Then before the dialog, we're going to set the selection mode to true. So we want these display arrays to allow for multiple row selection. Then, depending on what the user chooses to do, one of our actions will be executed and we'll call the appropriate code. The one we're going to look at here is a function called moveSelected. So if the user chooses to take fields from one side to the other, from one array to another, we're going to call the moveSelected function. And the moveSelected function, here's where we'll see our for loop that's going to check each of the rows using the isRowSelected method. So again, here's the code that we saw in the prior slide. We're going to check each of them, and if it is selected, we'll append it to the other array, and then we will delete it from the source array. The name and color settings there, we're just preserving the name, the text of the row, as well as the color settings of the row as it's moved from one side to the other, from one array to the other. Let's take a look at a demo in the demo directory that uses set selection range to select a set of rows. So here if we choose set range, we're choosing a set of rows, and those are automatically selected and highlighted. So this demo found in the FGL demo directory shows you the usage of multiple row selection and a variety of those options, including set selection range.